Hello, my name is Dina Moore, and I was born into a cult. That's not how I planned to start this video, but a lot of you have been asking, who are you? What gives you the right to teach this? What have you actually manifested? And you deserve the full answer. You deserve the whole story, so here it is. I was born into a cult. I spent 38 years inside of it. And when I finally got out, I lost everything. My family, my kids, my house, my dogs, my will to live. I was sleeping in a car with a backpack. And that is where your manifestation coach starts. This is not a pretty story. It's painful. I might get a little choked up. You might get a little choked up, but I want to teach you something here. And I need you to watch it all the way to the end. Because this isn't just a story about hitting rock bottom. This is a story, my story, about what you can build from nothing. And if I can do it, I promise you, so can you. So picture this. I was 38 years old, and everything that I owned fit in a backpack. I had this beat up old car that I think was about a $1,500 car that I was sleeping in. And honestly, some days I wasn't sure if I was going to make it because I had lost everything. My family, my job, my house, my dogs, my religion, my kids, my life. And I'm going to be honest, because you came here from the truth, for the truth, I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't know what I had to live for. I'm not saying that for shock value. I'm saying it because maybe there's somebody out there right now watching this. And I want you to know that you are not alone. I know exactly what that feels like. So, how does somebody end up there? Well, let's go back to the beginning. As I said, I was born into the cult, not the kind of cult you see on documentaries. It wasn't a compound, it wasn't matching outfits. This one looked perfectly normal from the outside. We were the ones that knocked on your door on Saturday mornings and brought casseroles when somebody died. We were the ones that smiled and looked so happy. But inside those walls was a different story. Women were beneath men, not subtly, but structurally, by design, by doctrine. Education was not an option. Education wasn't some dream that you chased. It was a danger that you avoided. The world outside the religion was corrupt. Any sort of ambition was pride. Anybody who wanted anything more than that was spiritually weak. And here is the belief that they installed in every one of us from the moment we were born. It was that the end of the world was coming tomorrow, maybe today, that the world is the Titanic and it's going down. So forget about college, forget about a career or money, forget about dreaming, forget building a life, just save souls and serve God because nothing else matters. That was my entire childhood. And here's the other thing. Anyone who ever questioned any of the beliefs, if there was something in your mind that, maybe just didn't quite make sense, there was a punishment for that. They would call it your treacherous heart and your sinful inclinations. And if you persisted in, thinking, there was a punishment. And the word for that was excommunication. They called it disfellowshipping. But what it really meant was this. Everyone you have ever loved, your mother, your siblings, your oldest friends, your entire world will walk right past you on the street like you were dead. No phone call, no goodbye, no just checking on you to make sure you're still alive. Nope. Gone. So that was the cage. And that's the cage I was born inside of. So from the age of 11, I was preaching. Full time, knocking on doors, 100 hours a month was the requirement. And I didn't go to the comfortable people. I didn't go to the successful people. It was to the broken people, to the poor, to the immigrants, to the people that the rest of the world had already decided didn't matter. I didn't go to public school. I was homeschooled, self-educated, no college, no career, no plan for the future, because the future wasn't supposed to exist. And this was the world, this was the cage I was supposed to build a life inside of. It was the only cage I knew. So I tried. At 18, I was given a husband. So I know this sounds weird, but it's not an exaggeration because this was a cult. And in my world, you didn't date. You were not allowed to be alone with somebody that you were interested in, ever. So my family picked him. He was about 10 years older than me, and we had never once been alone together. And it wasn't until after we were married that I found out that he was gay. So I want you to sit with that for a second, because here we had a gay man that was trapped in a religion that called his identity a sin, and he did the only thing that the cult would allow him to do, which was marry me. So in many ways, we were both victims of the same system. That marriage lasted about 3 years. And when I left, when I got a divorce, I was shunned. I was excommunicated. I was punished for leaving a marriage that never, ever, ever, ever could have worked. I was about 20, 21 at the time, and here I am shunned from every human that I knew. And so, the obvious happens. I get pregnant. And so here I am, shunned from everybody, and I could not imagine raising my baby without grandparents and aunties and uncles and the whole world I had ever known, because in this cult, shun the mom and you shun the baby. So my baby would grow up invisible to everyone that I loved. In order to get let back in, I had to marry the baby's father. So this is another second marriage, really built entirely on cult brainwashing, cult programming. We barely knew each other. He did not belong to the religion, but I needed back in, and that was the way to get back in. That was the price. So 5 years, 3 kids later, my oldest was about 5 years old, and he left. And honestly, I don't blame him. He did not sign up for the cult wife. He did not sign up for a life built on rules that he didn't believe in. He made the same decision that was available to him. So at this time, I'm about 28. And I'm a single mom, 3 kids, no education, no career, no money. And I have the religion telling me that a woman without a husband is nothing. I have a lot of people ask me, why did you get married so many times? Because I was in a cult, guys. I did what the cult said to do. I married the 3rd time. This person belonged in the religion too. He was 20 years older than me. And because you're never allowed to be alone with the person you're about to spend the rest of your life with, I didn't know that he was an alcoholic until after we were married. This marriage lasted about 10 years. And inside these 10 years, something happened that really started changing everything. I found NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, the science of how your mind creates your reality, the psychology of your beliefs, your behavior, your identity. And I want you to understand what it felt like for me to discover this. I had spent my entire life inside a system that punished curiosity, called education dangerous, that told me that the mind was something to control and submit, not something to develop. And the study of psychology just blew me open, just blew my mind open. I felt like I was obsessed. I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And the more I learned about how the subconscious mind worked, how beliefs are installed, how your identity creates your behaviors, how the stories that we carry become the cage that we live in. Well, I started to understand exactly how the mind was working, and I became certified as a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. At that time, I was also studying the law of attraction. It was about that time that The Secret had come out, and it just made so much sense to me with what I had learned about the power of the mind that I was combining the two. I was combining the neurolinguistic programming with the power of visualizations and manifesting and clearing out the blocks. And so I was coaching. I had a real estate coaching business, primarily real estate agents. I would take new agents and help them sell $1 million in their first year. I was working with entrepreneurs, people building from nothing and walking them all the way through selling their companies. At this time, too, because they were setting business goals, a lot of times when a person doesn't meet their business goals, it's because their personal life has issues. Either they're going through a divorce or they're suffering from depression. There's a plethora of life gets in the way of business. So the business coaching and the life coaching was just all one fluid thing that I absolutely thrived in that environment. Career-wise, I'm still in a cult, right? I understood that the beliefs were sabotaging everything that my clients were trying to build. I knew how to change them. And that's still what I do. Every video on this channel is built on that experience. So if you've been watching me and wondering whether working together could change something real for you, the answer is yes. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because this is the part of the story where everything falls apart. So during this third marriage, is 10 years of the third marriage, my mind is blowing up with psychology, with neurolinguistic programming, with the power of hypnosis and the power of the law of attraction, and still inside the cult. We had accepted a assignment to do a missionary assignment in the Dominican Republic. So husband number 3 and the 3 kids, we were in the Dominican Republic. And after about 10, it had been about 10 years that we were married, and I couldn't hide the bruises anymore. So I had to report him, and the church disciplined him. He lost his status. He lost his privileges in the congregation, everything that mattered to him in that world, and he was furious with me. So he left and he took everything. He took the money, he took the business, and he left me and the 3 kids penniless. I tried to stay. I tried to make it work, but financially, I really could not make it there with the 3 kids. I decided that I was going to need to go back to the States to work, rebuild my life, get back on my feet, be able to support me and the kids. And so while I'm doing that, husband number 3 had gone back to our hometown, back to the community of everybody that I knew. Every single person that I had a relationship with and that I knew belonged to the cult. Remember, I didn't even go to public school, so I didn't have anything outside of the cult. This is where the story starts to get a little bit dark because in the cult world, the husband is the head of the house. His word is law. His word carries weight that a woman's just doesn't carry. He accused me of the unforgivable sin. He accused me of apostasy, cursing God, turning against everything. And everyone believed him. There was no trial. I didn't get to defend myself. There was no moment where I could go to the people that I had loved my entire life and say, "No, this isn't true." It happened so fast. I didn't know what hit me. Overnight, I was shunned. My mother, my father, my grandparents, my brother, my sister, every friend that I had ever known, every person who had known me since I was born, they were gone. I lost my children, my job, my house, my career, everything. It's like a bad country song. And they have not spoken to me in 12 years. Now, I know that some of you want to say right now, because I've heard it 1,000 times, well-meaning people will say, "Don't give up hope. You'll get them back. You can fix this." But I need you to hear me when I say this with the gentlest love and understanding for your good intentions. No, I cannot get them back because this is a cult. In their world, speaking to me is a sin against God. And the people that I love are true believers. So the truth is that if they reached out to me, if I called and they answered, they would be shunned. They would lose everything that I lost. And I didn't sit around waiting for a reconciliation that the system will not allow. And I've made peace with that. You know, that peace has its own kind of triumph. But let's get to that. Let's go back to sleeping in my car. Before I do that though, I want to tell you what those 38 years actually gave me. Before we get to the rebuilding part, I want to tell you what I pulled from those 38 years. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about a life like mine. From the age of 11, I was sent to the people that the rest of the world ignored. The poor, the broken, the immigrants, the ones who'd already been failed by the world. And when you spend that much time sitting across from people in their homes, on their couches, at their worst moments, you see a version of humanity that very few people ever get to see. When I heard the story of immigrants making the trek to the United States in the back of a truck, hidden under false floors, packed together in the dark, urinating on each other just to survive the journey, it wasn't a documentary that I was watching. It was Marta, sitting right across from me, telling me her story while I held her baby. I held women while they told me about sexual abuse, domestic violence, drug abuse, depression so heavy that they couldn't explain it. They could only sit in it. I watched my best friend die by suicide because he was gay, and we were inside a cult that told him that that was a crime, that he was a crime. I had volunteered in a maternity ward in the Dominican Republic, and there were Haitian women. What I saw there probably will always impact me. They were lying on plastic sponges on the floor, no sheets, not covered up, no dignity, no comfort. I would scrape together whatever extra money I had to go buy used sheets or used towels so that I could cover them. I buy bottles of ibuprofen to hand out because they didn't even have painkillers, and I had to do something. And I saw all of that the whole 38 years. I have heard some people say that having a child preach like that for 100 hours a month from the age of 11 is child abuse. Maybe it was. But what it did, what all of it did, was show me a version of humanity that most people only read about. I didn't read about it. I lived it. I held it. I sat with it. So when I look into the camera and I say, I know you, I mean it. I mean it. When I talk about manifesting, when I talk about rebuilding yourself from scratch, I didn't come from the white picket fence and, go to the right schools and get the right education and then go through a divorce and say, boom, see, I just visualized all this. No, man, I came from the trenches here. So let's talk about the rebuilding part. I was parked in a parking lot with a backpack in my beat up old car. And honestly, I didn't know if I was going to make it. And again, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm saying this because I know that somebody right now could be feeling that. And I want you to hear what comes next, because the only thing that I had was my mind. That was it. I had 10 years of NLP experience, 10 years of helping people transform their lives using the science of the mind, 10 years of sitting across from entrepreneurs, salespeople, from broken people, from people who'd been told that they were nothing, and watching them and helping them evolve into something else. I had done it for other people, and I had done it on a limited scale for myself too, under the confines of the cult. At the time, not realizing that my results were limited because of the box that I was in. So as I'm finding myself devastated, I decided I have two options. I have Option one, which is check out, call it quits, and this is the end. Or I would do for myself what I had done for clients. I would rebuild myself. I would sit in one chair as the client and I would cry. I would dump. I would just go all these things and I'd fall apart. I'd say every dark thing that was in me. And then I'd get up, shake it off, stand up, sit in the next chair, and I'd say, "Okay, Dina, this is what you just said. And we both know that cannot completely be accurate. So let's talk about these beliefs. Let's look at what is actually true." This was brutal. It was the hardest thing I have ever done because I wasn't coaching a stranger. I was coaching myself through the worst loss a human being can experience. Losing your children, your family, your identity, your future. You know, I've had some of you ask me in the comments, how do you find hope when everything feels hopeless? That's where I was. And I will not sit here and tell you, just visualize, just raise your vibration, just believe and it will come true, because that's not how this works. What I did was grueling. It was gut-wrenching. And some days the goal wasn't to see my future. It was just to get through the next hour, just the next hour, you know, and then maybe the next day, just one foot in front of the other. I was coaching myself on massive trauma. I was restructuring my identity. I was forcing myself to rebuild a future. I was forcing myself to reframe the loss, to forgive, to let go of the anger. And then I coached myself on business the same way I'd coach those new real estate agents. And again, I had no contacts. I had no sphere of influence, no network, no family, no one. You know, there are very few 38-year-old people who can say, I don't know a human being and actually mean it. I meant it, unfortunately. That first year, I sold 19 houses. Not just because the universe handed it to me, but because I did the work in the trenches, because I did the soul searching. I dug it all out, inside, outside. I changed what was running in my mind, and the results outside started reflecting it. About 5 years later, I had accumulated enough wealth, and I decided to move to Ecuador. Real estate, while I was very, very, very good at it, I think in my top year, I sold 38 houses. That was not my purpose. That was not my life calling. So 5 years after a career in real estate, I came to Ecuador. I bought 40 acres and I built a 6,000 square foot healing retreat with a fully organic farm. And for the first time in my life, I'm doing exactly what I was put here to do. Not what the cult decided, not what a husband decided, not what fear decided, what I decided. What I decided my real life was going to be like. And started in a car with a backpack and a choice, a decision to keep going. You know, it was slow when I found my way back. And then eventually I had started finding my way forward. So that's the answer to your question. What gives me the right? That's what gives me the right. I know what it feels like to lose everything, to lose your family, your identity, your reason to be alive. I know what it feels like to have the beliefs of other people in your mind before you're old enough to choose. I know what it's like to believe those beliefs so much that you can't imagine changing them. I also know what it feels like to wake up and realize that you've been living someone else's life, that you don't know who you are. And I know what it feels like to rebuild from nothing, because that's exactly what I did. I'm sitting here now and I'm talking to you from 40 acres in Ecuador. And today I work with executives and entrepreneurs. I help them do what I had to learn the hard way: how to reprogram what's running in the background, how to stop letting the past write the future, how to actually create the life that you want, not the one that you got stuck with. It's not luck, it's not magic. This is the science of how your mind works, combined with the lived experience of someone who had every reason to stay broken, and I chose not to. This isn't just theory. I'm not recording these videos off of book learning. This is lived experience. Everything I teach, I lived first. So if you're new here, welcome. Welcome. This is where we begin. And if something in this video touched you, please share it, because someone in your life needs to hear that it's not too late, that the story you were given is not the story that you have to keep. You have the choice to rewrite a new story on your terms. All right, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.